Hey guys, so the next thing that we're going to talk about today are going to be 3D shapes and their nets. The reason that we're going to focus on taking a 3D shape and laying it out into their 2D nets is so that we can then find the surface area for that shape. So let's go ahead and start with looking at a cube, because a cube is one of those shapes that's very easy to understand since every face is going to be a square. So remember, when we're talking about faces, we're talking about each side. So in a 3D cube, you're gonna have 6 different faces, and that's really laid out for you here. You can see all the faces laid out in its net. Okay, so if you notice, here we have the base or the bottom of the cube that used to be right there. And then we just kind of extended, here's the side. You extend these outer parts out into the wings. And then you just kind of unfold the top and roll it out right there. So this is taking our 3D cube and making it into a 2D net. Now, what's really important with this is going to be our ability to still identify the length, width, and height so that we can later find surface area. So I want you to watch Miss Greathouse as she does this. If I'm going to identify this side of my cube as my length, on my net, that would be all of these sides here that are being laid out. For my width, which I'm identifying as that side, it would be any side going in this direction. And then lastly, please excuse my dogs if they start barking. No, dogs. I just paused it for a second to calm them down. But the one that's the most difficult to find is going to be our height over here on the cube that we see right here. We want to understand that that height is going to be identified by these lengths right here. Because that's going to be, if you were to stand them all up, you would have my length, width, and height. Okay, we're going to do that for all of our 2D shapes, or all of our 3D shapes now that we're going to learn about. So one of the words that I want to make sure that we define here is a prism, okay? A prism is going to be a 3D shape whose 2 end faces are similar, and the sides are parallelograms or rectangles. When we're talking about the end faces, it depends on the orientation of the prism. In this example right here, this rectangular prism, the end faces are going to be these 2 squares, because all of these rectangles are going to be the sides of those squares that are going to connect when the neck comes up to make that 3D shape. And as you can see, the sides are either parallelograms or rectangles. This particular base is a square, or it could be a rectangle depending on what the actual measurements are. And in just a minute, we're going to learn about what you call it if it's not a square or a rectangle. Now again, I do want to go over this real quickly. If we're looking at the length at this rectangular prism, this one made it pretty tricky because it turned it on us. So that length can be found with all of these measurements, as well as this and this, because that gets folded up as the top. The width that you identify right back there is going to be these lengths right along here. All those red lengths are going to be our width. And then lastly, our heights. Our heights are going to be right here. If you stand the shape up, that's going to be how tall they are. So this is going to be what we call a triangular prism, because its bases, or the sides on the top and the bottom, their shape is a triangle. And then all of those sides connecting the bases are all rectangles, just like in our last definition. So this would be a triangular prism. Now, what's going to be difficult when we're finding surface area of this is that we're going to have to find the surface area of the triangles using the triangle equation, and the area of the rectangles using the rectangular We're going to get into surface area on Monday, but I want to make sure that we understand all of these nets. So what's very important when we're looking at length, width, and height, which we've been talking about in these 3D shapes, is that for a triangle, the height is still going to be at that 90 degrees. So it's not actually going to be a side length because the height is always identified to find the area of that triangle as whatever is there in that 90 degrees, okay? Now, if we're looking at this, we're not going to worry about finding the volume of this. We're only going to worry about finding the surface area. This is the last net that we're going to talk about today, and this is a pyramid. And in this pyramid, it's going to be a shape with any polygon as its base. So in this case, the base of this is going to be this square represented right here, but it will always have triangles connecting it to this top point called the apex. So as you can see over here on the sides, we've got all these triangles that are going to connect to one apex point at the top. So I hope that you guys were able to learn a little bit about the nets of 3D shapes today. Now make sure that you go and complete the 5-question Google Classroom quiz to see if we grasp the concept of 3D shape nets.